Okay, so today's presentation is about from diversity to breeding. Yesterday we discussed about how the human evolution and also the crop diversity and crop changes goes along with the human evolution. Accordingly, how the crops are being changed or managed by the in accordance with the human evolution. So the second part of today's talk, around 30 minutes, this talks how the diversity which lead to the breeding. So how the diversity is very important, how the natural diversity or wild diversity which take into the practical plant breeding program. So this, when you know this, some information on how much diversity in the crops, each crops, and how it is going to change the course of plant breeding in individual crops. So that is our today's discussion. So the any crop plants which comes from wild to cultivated types, the people has to maintain the different kind of diversity in that crop. Then only every changes when you make it, we can able to alter the genotypes, and accordingly you can manipulate the crops. So in the stages in the crop evolution from the present day crops from primitive types, there are a lot of things which you have to take. From first, I told you the domestication, because the domestication is this is the first process in the plant breeding. Domestication is the first event, that is the first method of plant breeding. Like domesticate the crop from wild to cultivated. So the first method of breeding is domestication. Once you domesticate, then you will get a lot of variations. So you will get changes in the phenotypes or desirable character you can get. So that is the variation being created. Once the variation being created, this variation may be a natural selection, or it may be a mutation, or it may be a polyploidy. So it is back and forth. If you develop a ploidy from diploid to tetraploid or hexaploid, if you manipulate, then the variation also get along that. So you can change the diploid to, if you make a cross between two closely related two diploid species and double the chromosome, then you will get a tetraploid nature of the crops can be evolved. One great example is where the people working on wheat, the artificial wheat being tetraploid, hexaploid wheat. That is, the wheat is a hexaploid genome. That is, it's got three components: A genome, B genome, and D genome. So when three genomes are, when there are three genomes, when you say it is a hexaploid nature, A genome, B genome, and D genome. So two A genome and B genome crossed and it became a tetraploid wheat. Then after that, one diploid added, then it became hexaploid. That's why this synthetic cereal also triticale being generated, but we cannot create exactly like the wheat, but the triticale being tried. So like that, the polyploidization also one of the key component in the process. And also the recombination. When you make your crosses between different variety, you get a recombinant. So the variations which help you to create a new recombinant. So these are all the traditional method people used. This traditional plant breeding system, which helps to give a lot of breeding methods, you will create a variations. From that, you will select superior recombinant. This is the one way you are selecting. Then you are also having the mutation breeding, tissue culture, and molecular markers, molecular breeding technology, which are also will substitute the traditional plant breeding, which make it a traditional plant breeding become a modern plant breeding. So the new technologies like mutation breeding from 80s and 90s, when you see many varieties being released from many plant breeders, it involves the mutation breeding technique. After that, there is 80s and 90s that people use tissue culture techniques to create somoclone variants. Once then, that also one of the technique being routinely used still nowadays. Even now, people use tissue culture. And also the mutation breeding. Then molecular biology, when molecular biology came into picture, then they used many molecular techniques, not only the marker-assisted breeding, transgenics, and many kind of manipulation, the molecular biology techniques helps to substitute the plant, help the plant, traditional plant breeding, put it into modern plant breeding. So by that, Either you create a variation by mutation or polyploidization or by recombinance, you can able to create a variation. So these variations, when you create, then using these traditional plant breeding methods, you select the superior recombinants. It may be cell-pollinator crops. We can develop elite varieties. The cross-pollinator crops also, you can develop varieties and hybrids we can develop. So these are all the stages in the crop evolution process. Once you know all these basic techniques, then only you can able to manipulate any crops just using one technique like a mutation, just using one technique as a tissue culture, or you can use a molecular breeding techniques like marker-assisted breeding or transgenic. This all, each one is one small technique. These techniques contribute for the traditional plant breeders to make it a modern plant breeding process. By that, they develop elite varieties. So, if you want to understand fully on the molecular breeding of field crops, so you want to manipulate the field crops, but the field crops being manipulated thousands, 10,000s of years of evolution process, breeding process. People use so many methods and try to change the crop architecture or crop yield or crop disease resistance by using many tools and many methods and many recombinants being generated. Okay. So can I apply one single technique? Can I manipulate? Yes. If, for example, if you apply the techniques, it has to hand in hand with other process also. You have to select the recombinants and also select the varieties which is adaptable to the nature. Even, for example, if you put a BT cotton, if you take an example, the one single gene, the cryon AC or cryon AB, one single which changes the crops, the BT cotton, but the varietal background or the varietal adaptability or the crop's nature, which is being changed by using so many methods. But we are adding additionally one gene, it makes the trait become more important, then it get a commercial value. So like that, when you study a molecular breeding of field crops, you should understand that you cannot work in isolation just by using simply the markers we can do. Yes, small traits can be added, but keeping in view what kind of changes already made on the particular variety or the particular hybrid. So how this technology will complement or substitute the already available things and how the changes being made. So this is the thing which you have to be very careful while working on manipulating the crop. Okay. So coming to the first, this class, I'm going to introduce all these different techniques, different methods, which been followed by traditional plant breeding. And so the second part of our discussion, all the techniques, how it lead to the changes. Also, we are going to discuss on that. So this is the basic principle in which you have to work on the crops. When you come these kind of applied courses like molecular breeding for the field breeding for field crops, you should have the first 2 units. We have the discussion on how the basics on that. Then by knowing the strong basics, how the crops being manipulated by traditional way. Then if you know about the application, the molecular marker technology, other mapping techniques, how it is changing the crop dynamics, you can have clear understanding. So this class, from the previous slide, I told you so many methods people use to manipulate the crops. We are discussing one by one, a little bit introduction on that. Coming to the domestication of the crops. So this, the first plant breeding method is the domestication method. So the human always guided the evolution of the crops. Whenever the human interfere on the particular crop, whether it is American continent or African continent or Asian continent, when they first see the crops, they want to consume or they want to manipulate, they intervene. So that is the guided evolution, the crops being guided and being evolved. So all the crops we know today, all are domesticated from the wild species, which I already told you from the last class, how the human domesticated 10,000 years ago, first barley being domesticated. So all the crops we know today are domesticated from the wild plant. So whenever you see any crop, you just look on the rice, the present day, the fine grain types, the Pusa Basmati type or the Basmati type or the long cylinder guy like Samba Masuri or Pundi. Whenever see this kind of fine rice with long cylinder, which have good eating quality, you always has to look the wild types, the Varesa perennis or rubiforgan, which are in the field, which are in the wild habitat. Then you can look on that, how many changes we made, how we brought this present day rice from the previous world type. So that is what are the changes we made, that you have to always look. So non-existence in nature, none could survive in the wild today. So when you take this particular the changed crops, the varieties which you develop, which if you throw it in the wild habit, it may not survive in the wild. Why? Because we changed a lot. Because we made a variety become fertilizer responsive. We made a variety into so many changes we made. So this has been more, sometimes it's many of the pest and diseases will attack. The wild types will not attack because of the changes we made. Sometimes it become more susceptible or sometimes it can amenable. So we have to adopt some kind of crop protection measures. Sometimes you have to good nutrition. Then only this present day high yielding varieties can survive. Not like the wild Varesa perennis, which has been wild type, it can survive. Even you are not giving anything, it can survive. But this kind of species, it's very difficult to survive. So the domestication, what I mean to say is that domestication, we changed a lot. We guided the evolution and make it to amenable for present day modern cultivation with the high input agriculture. This is the domestication. So the domestication, when you see here, so the transition from wild plant to the cultivated plant started early in the history of mankind. So I already told you from 10,000 years ago, barley is evolved. From 4,000 years ago, the corn. So like that, the slide, when you see every crop like peas or the rice or the maize or the yam or the blueberry or the pineapple, whatever you see present day, it's all evolved from the wild types. So it's all started early history of mankind. Every decade, every 1,000 years, many crops are introduced. So not only they domesticated in the particular continent, after that they tried to the crop they moved to other continent by way of people introduce the crops. So that domestication, second method of plant breeding is the introduction of the crops. That means they introduce the crop from one continent to another continent. By that it is being introduced. Like for example, maize. Maize is not a crop of India because it been the Mexican origin. So it introduced from to other part of the world only during 16th century. So once the American continent been invented, then it is moved to other. Like that, every crop's been introduced. Okay. So coming to the next, the genetics of domestication. So crop domestication, when you look on that, few genomic regions are involved. So few genes and genomic regions are involved when the crops are domesticated, because we are not retaining all the genome regions or the genes which are present in the wild types. We changed a lot. So few genes, few genomic regions which are more amenable to the present day conditions win. Several of the genes have major phenotypic effect. So each one we change have major phenotypic effect. The genes for domestication represent a small set of total species. When you look on the present day cultivated types, we have high yielding, we have some disease resistance, some quality rice. So there are few genes or few phenotypes, only the subset is available with us. We lost many which are available in the wild or some of the other species. So other relatives, wild relatives, or the races, or some of the subjects, we lost many things. But we keep certain things which is needed for us. So the domestication could occur quite rapidly, which it takes around 10,000 years. Either it because of, I told you, mutation or whatever may be, but it occurs quite rapidly and it takes around 10,000 years. It's happened. Current crops may not carry adequate genetic diversity. The wild relatives are important reservoir of genetic diversity. So once you do domestication process, genetics of crop domestication, and also you have to know the other side of the story. When you change and keep it as small narrow varieties now, what happened to the already present variation? What happened to already available variations in the different species that you should understand. So that is the major reservoir. Still we can exploit, we can transfer those regions to the present cultivated varieties, and those are the real genetic diversity, but most of them are preserved in terms of gene banks like IRRI Gene Bank or CIMMYT Gene Bank or the NPPG or like Indian Gene Bank. Okay, so I told you that these are all the resources being preserved in the gene banks because the earlier plant people now using the modern technology, they know the importance of the preserving the plant species in the different places. So that's why the national gene banks or International Crop Institute, they install the international gene banks. They collect wild relatives and also the present day varieties, land races, natural. They collected all the thing. They made it, they call it as some collections. They collect it and stored in their gene banks. So they are the improved cultivars which is available in the public resources and private sources. There are many varieties now available in the public sector. We have released many varieties for cultivation of farmers. It's also been preserved in the particular institutes and also the national institutes like TNAU. We have the Ramaya Gene Bank. We preserve a lot of germ plasms which are released from Tamil Nadu and also the land races which is prevalent in Tamil Nadu been collected and stored in the gene bank. Similarly, national NPPG, National Plant Genetic Resources, they collected all over India and stored their land races and everything which has been preserved in the NPPG, National Plant Genetic Resources. Similarly, IRRI collected all international rights successions and they stored in the IRRI Gene Bank. Like barley, they have the IPK Dagatesliban or Okayama University, something like that. Everyone have own germ plasm. Okay, so the genetic resources available today, improved cultivars or private varieties or hybrids which are available in the public sector and private sector, those land races and germ plasm which are available in the gene banks. So each crop have several gene pools. So when you say that it is a variability, when you say that different kind of land races and varieties are wild types, we can classify into three broader categories. It's very important. One is the primary gene pool. Second, another is secondary gene pool and tertiary gene pool. The primary gene pool means the genes that can be readily transferred crossing to produce fertile F1 hybrids from old varieties or varieties. For example, if you take rice example, if you make a cross between two varieties or the variety and land races, the land races like Nutripattu, Norungan or the Kichadi Samba or some of the land races still some people are having. When you make a cross with our varieties like ADT 43 or 451, whatever the variety we release, we can cross with the land races or with other old varieties. That is called primary gene pool. That means it is can able to cross and you can transfer the gene from one variety to other variety or land races to here. So make a crosses and do the selections. So that we call it as primary gene pool. We should be very careful on the word which is using primary gene pool. This can readily transfer a way of crossing. We can transfer the trait or the gene or a genomic region. We can easily transfer by simple conventional crossing method. Second one is the secondary gene pool we call. This is little bit difficulty. That is the plant that may cross with some difficulty, just wild or weedy relatives. So the problems like linkage drags or infertility. When you make a cross with the related wild species, sometimes F1 will be sterile or sometimes F1 may be fertile, but when you go to F2, there is a linkage drag. You may not get a desirable segregant. The chromosomal regions may be eliminated. So these have some kind of difficulty. Those difficulty can be overcome, sometimes embryo rescue or sometimes tissue culture or sometimes some other methods or cold system. Some additional tools are needed, techniques are needed in order to make crosses and make new segregants. That is possible. So that is we call it as secondary gene pool. So this secondary gene pool we can, the problems can be overcome by, you can also use the secondary gene pool and you can transfer the trait of interest. Then third gene pool, it is very difficult to transfer from one variety to another variety, another wild types. So it is very difficult. So that's why the new techniques are are being used. That is called, we can use embryo rescues techniques, or finally the genetic engineering technique. That means the genes cannot be easily, the varieties cannot be crossed easily. The only option is genetic transformation. So take the gene from the desirable parent and transfer to the desirable variety, then what we call it as the golden rice program, or any kind of VLB resistance. Means we want to transfer from wild to be cultivated by using the genetic transformation technique. Earlier, the people used protoplast fusion technique, pisciculture technique, but nowadays only the genetic engineering techniques is the only option. If you have tertiary gene pool, if you want to transfer the traits, you can use only the tertiary gene pool. So these are all the gene pool which you have to understand. Whenever you ask, if you want to manipulate a variety, where the source of gene is available, where the source of variation is available. Whether it's a primary gene pool, secondary gene pool, tertiary gene pool. If it is easy, if you are available in the primary gene pool, then you can do crossing and step breeding, you can transfer by methods. But it's a little bit difficult. But if it is a tertiary gene pool, no other options, you can for only the transgenic approach. So that's why the people, India, there are some restriction on the transgenics in the food crops. So other crop they allowed. There are only option is the transgenic is the only option. Certain traits only transformation system. Others we can manage. So this you have to understand that which tool you are going to work and what technique you are going to apply in order to change your varieties or the hybrids. Okay. So this is the pre-breeding to breeding. Okay. So you have the pre-breeding material. So material is available to transfer your gene. So you have to know that where the material is available. So that is the one thing. Okay. So you have pre-breeding material. This means that trait, we call it as trait, which you want to introduce in your. I have very nice long slender trait, Ponni or Samba Masuri. It's very good fine quality, right? You want to a little bit better fine quality, you have to look on that. I want that particular variety, Ponni, I want to make it a more disease resistance. I want to making a more of nitrogen responsive. If you want to do the trait interest, you have to look for that where the material. So that's why the people call it as the pre-breeding. You have to look for the donor for disease resistance, for abiotic stress like drought tolerance, for grain quality. For example, Kauni varieties which have some of the anti-diabetic properties. So you want to transfer the diabetic property to the rice, anti-diabetic property. It's possible. So for that, you have to evaluate the germplasms, and then you have to look for the diversity. What are the diversity prevalent? For that, you can apply markers based on or the molecular markers, and you have to look for the gene discovery in order to transfer the gene, comparative genomics discovery, and also the different genomic platforms like genotyping platform. You can look on that. And these are all the needed to develop a pre-breeding material, which is needed to do the breeding work. So the germplasm development is the one process. One this kind of material available, then you can breed with the available cultivars by use of marker-assisted selection or some other tools we can use it. Okay. So coming to the next stage, we discussed about the domestication, variation, land races. So now we are going to discuss about the traditional plant breeding methods. What are the traditional plant breeding methods available to create a variation and select the superior recombinants? What are the traditional methods available? So please follow this particular slide. From every part I am going to say that where we are going. So here with the traditional plant breeding, what are the methods? What is the method they create the variation? How they select the recombinants? So these are all the things you should know. After that, we can go for detail on that, right? So here, when you call it as a traditional plant breeding methods, we have a lot of methods available. So here you have to find or create the variation. That is the first method in the plant breeding process. Once you create a genetic variation, then evaluate the variation over different environment. We try to plant breeding, they try to evaluate over environment, whether all the environment is doing well. Then select the genotypes for a specific farming system or desirable tribes. So which farming system you have to go for, a plant system or wetland system or the aerobic rice or the, so or you are going cold tolerance or drought tolerance, so many things. You have to select the location, and you have to which system, and also develop and provide farmers with improved varieties. So normally the plant breeding process, they first find and create the variation. Then after creating the variation, develop a new variety, they evaluate in different environments, and also they improve for specific system. After that, after evaluating the different environment, select for specific environment and to work on that. That after that, they provide this variety to the farmers for cultivation. So based on the pipelines of elite genetics, we develop varieties that meet the farmers' other consumer needs. When you release a variety, is not only for higher yield, the farmers always look for higher yield, and also it also look for the consumer point of view. Some consumer want a fine grain types for eating purpose. Some consumer want a short bold grain like Matta type in Kerala. They prefer the bold grain types. So you cannot. So it is based on the consumers who wants what kind of variety want. So people want some varieties for this for our cooking purpose. For some for idli making, we used to have the short duration varieties. So some North Indian type for special purpose we use for basmati types, not only aroma and for a biryani making. So it's again the consumer needs and also the farmers need. So we develop every time we develop the varieties which have specific needs. And also when you develop that, you have to adopt a new technologies like mutation breeding and data analysis by various different statistical methods, computerized data generation, and improved agronomic practices. So those techniques also they try to use it. Okay, so drastically they increase the crop productivity. You already know that during our Green Revolution period, the earlier days, before Green Revolution, most of the rice varieties or the wheat varieties are taller varieties, and there is less fertilizer responsive. During the Green Revolution time, during 80s, we want to change the phenotypes. They developed a dwarf varieties of wheat with high fertilizer responsive. Along with CIMMYT, they introduced the dwarfing gene into the wheat, and this make the Green Revolution in India. Same way, rice also. The first IR8 varieties, ERI varieties been introduced, and it's having more fertilizer responsive. So it increased the productivity very heavily. That helped us to India to self-sustain their agricultural productivity. So it's only they change the phenotypes from longer duration to shorter duration, tall types to short types, and also the fertilizer response. These are the three key characters which helps to India to achieve the bigger things during Green Revolution period. So drastically increase the productivity. And sometimes we introduce the hybrids also in many crops. Hybrid technology during 90s, the hybrid technology will play a major role. For example, in case of pearl millet and sorghum, if you see many of the cultivated sorghum and pearl millet are hybrids, which are high yielding types. So the hybrids, we have separate class for how the hybrid technology, will discuss on that. So the hybrids are developed. Even rice also, the hybrids India is trying. Still we could not able to commercialize the hybrids, but China is for their purpose, most of them are short, bold type varieties. The hybrids, they are performing well. So the hybrid rice also possible. So the developer introduced the resistance to disease and insects. Many insect disease resistance being introduced in case of rice, like blast and BLB resistance, and also gallmage resistance, insect resistance, BPH resistance. They introduced the resistance also. Then food quality and quantity. So when I talk about the quality, we always look on the rice. When you go to the supermarket, whether your mom and the home, you select some of the fine grain type for your cooking purpose. So we look for quality and also sometimes the quantity. For example, idli making type, we have separate varieties which have higher yield there, but the quality of the grains may not be good rice. So the crop adaptable to mechanical harvest, zero tillage, organic production. Now the people changing. Some people now, earlier we want to have fertilizer response. Now also we use high yielding types fertilizer responsive. Some percentage of consumers, very maybe affordable consumers, they try to use the organic type. So that means less fertilizer responsive. You have to go for the less fertilizer response, your traditional varieties suitable for organic cultivation. So that also now people are coming, zero tillage method also coming, mechanical harvest nowadays, you cannot harvest by human labor. So many of the crops are designed nowadays suitable for mechanical harvesting. Now last 1 decade, everything, US it is mechanized already. India, every time now we are looking for suitable for mechanical harvesting. That means determinate types. If you continuously flower, you cannot harvest 3 to 4 harvests. One single harvest, if you want to make, it is a determinate type. You can harvest at a stage. Some of the crop like pulses and other crops, vegetables. Okay. So these are all the things people looking on the plant breeding perspective. So people are doing conventional breeding for thousands of years, and there are some difficulties. The conventional plant breeding methods sometimes so difficulty. So we go for adding some of the newer tools for the conventional technique. So what are the disadvantages? Then only we can apply the new tools, because it's sometimes the breeding process requires a lot of time, 7 to 10 years. So it requires repeated generation of crossing and selection. It needs a lot of time. So that is one disadvantage. So confined to the transfer of genes between the plants are sexually compatible. That I already told you, only the primary gene pool, compatible type only you can transfer. Secondary or tertiary or the wild types, if you have desirable genes are there, it's very difficult to transfer the conventional plant breeding method. So that is another disadvantage. And also the genes in addition to the desired will be transferred, and if undesirable maybe take several generations to eliminate. When you transfer the desirable gene to your background, sometimes because of linkage tracks, some of the genes which are attached to the nearby regions to the desirable genes, some undesirable traits also there. So it also come along with that. So conventional plant breeding methods is very difficult to eliminate. It needs several selfing, several test cross generations to eliminate undesirable traits. But this is where the molecular breeding comes. The precise markers, which are markers very closely linked to the trait of interest, you can precisely transfer the desirable genomic regions by avoiding other regions which have undesirable effects. So there the molecular breeding, which play a major role, the marker-assisted breeding, genomic selection play a major role nowadays in all private and public sector companies. They try to use this kind of technology for the precise transfer of desirable region, permitting many traits in a single varietal background. So this is all some of the disadvantages it make advantage when you use this kind of molecular breeding techniques. So we already discussed about the creating variation, selecting recombinants, and how the conventional plant breeding techniques works. So let's see why the traditional plant breeding, they forced to use the modern techniques, become modern plant breeding. So these the 3 major areas, they try to use it and try to develop the varieties. The first one is the tissue culture methodology. I need not tell you that you already studied many tissue culture technique courses, and it's have a lot of advantages in the plant breeding if you use it. The one such is, we call it as the dihaploid lines is very peculiar in case of rice. Other culture techniques which have been highly helpful for doubling the chromosome number, and by that you can, the homozygosity attained very quickly. The development of DH populations in the mapping and DH lines for the plant breeding purpose is very important tool in tissue culture, apart from creating the somoclone variations. Coming to the molecular DNA technology, which it's include marker-assisted breeding, and its carrying usual traits can be transferred easily by studying the genomic structure, by genotyping, by whole genome sequencing, or the SNP genotyping. Many things we are nowadays, we apply we study the structure of the total population by applying the different markers. So those things are, people use the DNA technologies being very commonly used in the modern plant breeding program. Then already the genetic transformation, you already know that how the genes are transferred from one, how the desirable genes been transferred by rice tissue transformation system. You are familiar. Some of the courses they take how agrobacterium mediated transformation techniques help us to transfer the desirable genes in the background already. These are 3 major areas that plant breeding, modern plant breeding, they're using the technologies. So when I talk on the few application, when you say tissue cultures, you already studied the whole course on tissue culture. So I need not tell, but I want to emphasize that one is how it's a practical plant breeding program. This one is, I already told you, dihaploid plant from anther culture. It's very useful technique in case of rice, DH production, and also many vegetable crops, they use the DH production. Then micropropagation is one of the meristem tip culture, which is used for the identification, multiplying the allied clones. For example, in case of asexually propagated crops, once you identify the fixed clone, if it is a tapioca, or if you, for example, in case of rose or many of the ornamentals, if you fix that, it is the allied types, the plant breeder selected, either mutation or recombination, whatever may be. Once they fix that particular clone is fine, then you can do vegetatively propagating. So one such micropropagation techniques like cassava or the rose or some of the crops which micropropagation is working well, banana. Once you identify the allied banana variety, you can, millions of banana clones can be developed by micropropagation technique. So the tissue culture is aid for the multiplication. And also the large scale secondary metabolites, like secondary productions, bioforming, and also the in vitro cultures, mostly for the somoclonal variations that people are using. Okay, so the expand in the, this also the somoclonal variations that arise from the mutation in tissue culture. Sometimes the mutation occurs during the culture media. So because of that, you get a variation in the plant. That also we are creating a variation the plant breeding people used for the tissue somoclonal variants. And also the generating and maintaining the crosses from distantly related species that I already told you. Embryo culture technique is the one technique. If you are unable to fertilize, and if you fertilize, the embryos are degenerating, then you go for the embryo rescue techniques to rescue the plant, and you can get a desirable variants. Somatic hybridization, like asexual hybridization, that is by protoplast culture that people earlier worked, but now this technique is not much popular nowadays. So somatic hybridization being done earlier, protoplast fusion, then followed by protoplast regeneration, and can get the cells. And also the recovery and regeneration of many transgenics, you need a good tissue culture technique. Okay, so this is about the tissue culture techniques being applied in the modern plant breeding programs, and also how the application of DNA technologies in the plant breeding. You already studied many courses on the how your molecular biology techniques being applied. So now I am just highlighting which are the very important things, important techniques which helps to plant breeding, practical plant breeding program. So you already know the genome sequencing. During 2005, rice genome sequencing is completed. So when the rice genome sequencing been completed, you will get a lot of rice genome sequence information. So that helps us to develop more markers, more genotyping technology, many things come out of that. So the sequencing technology will totally change the total paradigm shift in the plant breeding program, because we use the genomic selections, we use the resequencing of varieties, selective genotyping, segregating populations are selected by ways of genotyping method. So this is the one picture I show you, that how the multi-country project around each chromosome being contributed different countries. Then the rice genome sequencing consortium. India also contributed for the 11th chromosome, and Japan is the 2nd chromosome, US on 3rd chromosome. So many countries which participated, and first rice genome sequence been released. So it's have a lot of application, molecular markers, and also which helps, and also if I identify the key genes, now these genes can be used for genetic transformation, quickly get the desirable types. Okay. So now the people use this molecular marker-assisted breeding program. They use our novel QTL identification, new synthetic variety development, allied varieties, genotyping platform, marker-assisted breeding, all being nowadays integrated. Anyhow, we are going to discuss in deep how these different tools and molecular breeding techniques being used in the breeding program next coming classes. Okay, so whatever I talk now, the traditional plant breeding, by using these kind of mutation, tissue culture, and also the molecular DNA technologies, which make the traditional plant breeding become modern plant breeding techniques. So this modern plant breeding technique, now the modern plant breeding technique, which use the traditional knowledge, along with also apply new techniques and make it a modern way. And now again, they develop, every time they develop new varieties and hybrids, but only every decade the techniques may changing. Okay, so this is again, when you select the superior things, the modern plant breeding, you should design the concept separately for self-pollinated crops and cross-pollinated crops. So coming to the self-pollinated crops, one example is rice. If you say it's a highly self-pollinated crops, you have applied different techniques for developing variety. One example, cross-pollinated crop like maize, it's have a highly cross-pollinated, you have adopt different techniques. You all the basic techniques you can apply, but the designing the new varieties or hybrids, you have to adopt special technique. Okay. So the variation, the plant breeding, when they go for variation generations, I already told you, mutation, polyploidy, hybridization selection, and novel technologies. So the variation is where it comes, the variation arises from this technique, and variation comes from mutation, polyploidy, or recombination, controlled, uncontrolled hybridization. The variation comes from land races. We can get the land races and use these techniques, we can get a variations. And variation, the modern plant breeding program comes like polyploidy, recombination by molecular biological techniques. We can create a variations either from natural source. Earlier people died, earlier they used the traditional methods, they used variation from, they get from land races. The modern methods we create from the different kind of varieties. So the modern, when you want to go for a modern plant breeding method, we have, I already told you, we have to design separate method for the creation of variability or the maintaining variability and developing varieties, separate method for the cross-pollinated crops and self-pollinated crops. So next class, let's see how the various plant breeding methods are designed, various tools and techniques, traditional or modern plant breeding, how they are dealing separately for the cross-pollinator crops, for the self-pollinator crops, what kind of methodology, what kind of design they use for this plant breeding methods being used for this kind of crops. So with that, we'll stop our discussion today about how this diversity actually lead to the plant breeding methods and how it being used for the different tools and techniques available. So next class, we'll see about the cross-pollinator and self-pollinator crops. Okay. Thank you for listening. Let's see. So all are there in the presentation?
Yes.
Anyone please?
Yes, sir.